Welcome to Alchemy Uncensored, a podcast presented by Alchemy Search, a team of professional financial and tax recruiters. Our podcast is dedicated to providing valuable insights into the financial and tax sector of the UAE by discussing the challenges and opportunities faced by employers and job seekers. Alchemy Uncensored is the perfect podcast for those looking to gain a competitive edge in the finance, accounting and tax industry of the UAE. Stay informed on the latest job market trends, developments and conversations to stay ahead of the game. Tune into our podcast to be part of this insightful conversation.
Hi, I'm Rutika and I'm a specialized tax recruiter at Alchemy Search in Dubai. Today we have the pleasure of having Thomas Vanhee as our guest speaker for the tax podcast. So Thomas is the founder and managing partner at Aurifer, which is a boutique tax consulting firm based in Dubai and having offices in Saudi Arabia and Belgium. He's a lecturer at Sorbonne and Middlesex universities, and he holds 2 masters in law and taxation. He is actively involved in publishing tax articles as well. So thank you, Thomas, for joining us today at this podcast. It's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you for having me.
So firstly, we just wanted to understand about your professional journey as the founder of a tax consulting firm in the GCC.
Sure. It's been 6 years now. We started off in 2017, and I must admit it wasn't always the easiest of journeys. People only see the outside, and then they see, people working, things being published and whatnot. But I can tell you that once you cut the umbilical cord with an employer and you're out there on your own, it is very different approach to things, and it's very different mindsets. I made mistakes down the road for sure, but luckily had a couple of good people to counsel me within the firm, outside of the firm, support from family and whatnot, and very happy to be where we are right now, 6 years later, a team of 30 people, and very happy with where we are currently in the market.
So since 2017, there has been a complete tax revolution in this region, and I wanted to know your thoughts on how the market is reacting to it. Like, how are the businesses reacting to the changes in the tax landscape here?
Yeah. I mean, it's been interesting. I arrived in January 2017, and you barely had any tax experts in the UAE. The ones that you met and that were around for a couple of years, a lot of people were asking, what are you doing in this country, right? And then it kind of developed quite quickly from there. Excise tax in 2017, VAT in 2018, 2019, economic substance regulations, and now corporate income tax in the UAE. Obviously, in the other countries around the UAE, notably Saudi, the situation was and is very different. Historically had a lot of taxes already. I think it's an interesting dynamic to see right now to compare VAT to corporate income tax, because for VAT, the approach for a lot of businesses was we give it to the accountants, to the finance team, and it's a pure kind of reporting kind of thing. And maybe you've seen this in recruiting as well. Whereas for corporate income tax, it seems to take on more importance because it will hit their bottom line. The profits after tax are going to be impacted. The interesting thing, I think, when you compare the two is the risks that you run actually with VAT and excise tax in terms of potential penalties are far greater than they are for corporate income tax.
Oh, okay.
Because the rates are high. Yeah, let's say 5% for VAT on gross, 50% or 100% for excise tax on the value of the product.
Right.
And for corporate income tax, it's merely on the profits, right?
Okay.
So if you do something wrong, the penalties will be far less for corporate income tax. Nonetheless, you see that businesses take corporate income tax a bit more serious. Where there's still a bit way to go is in structuring and restructuring and in mergers and acquisitions. We still don't see enough focus on the tax aspects, but I think that'll grow as we have more and more taxes in the UAE, really. But I think there should be more attention given to that. So I think that there's definitely room for improvement for the tax market to still evolve a bit.
Yeah, right. And if we were to compare the tax markets in UAE and KSA, what do you think are the most significant driving factors or key challenges in both of them?
Yeah, they're two very interesting markets, and we're lucky to be present in both of them, and so we know them very well. Saudi is the market of the volume and the size.
Right.
All businesses that we deal with are big. In the UAE, the economy is smaller compared to Saudi Arabia, and you can potentially deal with more mid-sized businesses or with local subsidiaries that have a smaller size than, for example, in Saudi Arabia. There is a difference in sophistication, though.
Okay.
Usually, the UAE market, in terms of the types of transactions, the types of income is more varied, is a bit more sophisticated. In Saudi Arabia, you'll find much more of like the traditional, I'm a buy-sell company, I'm a trading company, or simpler products. You especially see this in the financial services sector, where the UAE is very, very much advanced in that. Saudi Arabia is much more traditional financing. Like, for example, trade financing is not very developed in Saudi, whereas in the UAE, it's much more developed. The other thing as well is that I think in terms of the needs of businesses there, in the UAE, the need is very much, from a tax point of view, focus on international tax, due to the UAE being a smaller jurisdiction, very open, and a lot of foreign businesses, a lot of foreign direct investment. Whereas in Saudi, it's much more domestic. So it's harder to find someone in Saudi who specializes in international tax.
Right.
There's one major dynamic, I think, that's going to shape things in the coming years to come. That's all of the giga projects in Saudi Arabia. We assist a lot of businesses that are now winning tenders, winning contracts there. And you really see that the amount of investment put into projects like, for example, NEOM, the Red Sea development, but also a couple of projects, urban development projects in Riyadh, Riyadh Air, for example, the new airline. All of those are really driving a lot of investment into Saudi, to the point where you can see, for example, today it's very hard to find office space in Saudi Arabia, in Riyadh particularly, because of the growth. Really.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's a great perspective on the KSA market as well. So given your experience in more mature tax markets previously, what do you foresee is the future of tax in this region?
I think the dynamics are different here than, for example, in Europe. I think the tax function should develop further, become a bit more autonomous. Today, it very often sits under the CFO and is a bit limited by the finance function. I think there's room to give more independence, more power, more autonomy, and more budgets to heads of tax. I'm not just saying that because they would be our clients, but also simply because I do believe it makes sense. I think we will see, particularly in the UAE, more disputes. And I think those disputes should be evolving into disputes more around the material aspects rather than just the procedural aspects as they do today. And then again, particularly for the UAE, I think transfer pricing is really one of the areas, I would say, potentially misunderstood by a lot of businesses. And also, there's not that many people who actually properly grasp the whole concept. So I think that's probably something to look forward to. I don't think it'll evolve in the same way as it does in some other jurisdictions where there's maybe heavy administrative litigation, much more principle-based discussions between tax authority and taxpayers. I don't believe that that's going to be the case. Yeah.
So yeah, I completely agree with you. I think as the law matures, I think more companies would see the value addition which tax professionals can bring to the organization, which is currently it's more of a finance-centric function right now. So yeah, I hope to see this change coming in the coming months and years. So as a business owner, what are the key challenges that you see in this market?
I think one complication is that the regime is a bit of a moving target. We constantly have new decisions coming out and positions evolving from the regulators, the ministry or the FTA. That's not just in an issue in the UAE, and in Saudi also it evolves relatively quick. Evolution is good. I will say that. But for taxpayers, certainty and stability is also very often favored. And I think when it comes to, for example, UAE corporate income tax in the next couple of years, because it's a bit of a moving target, currently there's a number of questions outstanding as to their application in terms of corporate income tax. And those blanks are probably going to be filled in bit by bit, a bit like we saw with VAT as well. It took some time, and then sometimes there were positions that a person wouldn't expect, and then you need to go fix things. That's that happens, unfortunately, when you implement a new regime. As for our business, because you're asking for the perspective as a business owner, I think what we see is we see a lot more inquiries for our services naturally. And I think towards the first filing deadline, which for most businesses is going to be September 2025, I think we will see a fair amount of activity until then. Our practice is structured, though, in such a way that we also do a lot of policy work, which is not necessarily dependent on these kind of deadlines. And we do a lot of structuring, restructuring, and M&A work, which is, again, also not really tied to that deadline. And so that's going to keep us busy, pretty much forever, really. Yeah.
So at Aurifer, I see that there is a lot of focus on tax trainings and academics in respect of GCC taxes. So what are your tips for fresh graduates who are looking to make a career in taxation, or even experienced professionals who are looking at upskilling?
Yeah. It's true. I mean, we place a lot of emphasis on training and the technical side of things, because I think it's important for people to acquire those skills. Recommendations for freshers is, and this is easy for me to say, and when I was young, they told me this, but I wouldn't accept it, is just focus on your learning, not necessarily on your salary. Again, when I was young, I didn't follow that either, so I'm not sure if I'm in the best position to really recommend that to people. But I think your technical foundation in your first initial couple of years is fundamental. This technical foundation you can acquire through, for example, the certificate that we have together with Middlesex. So as from October, we have a 2-month-long program, 48 hours, comprehensive GCC taxation with lectures from Big Four industry advisors. It's a very comprehensive program. It's very good for freshers. It's good for people who want to change career. Maybe you're in a finance function and you want to say, I want to focus only on taxation, or even a refresher as well. It's more of an introduction. There's other institutions as well in the UAE, which where you can follow tax classes. There's not that many. So I provide some, as you said, at Sorbonne University, but also at the DIFC Academy. Those are places where you can get an intro into taxation. So, I mean, the main thing is it's hot right now. It's in demand. But obviously you need to have the technical skills also to be able to help your future employers.
Of course. I think this is really interesting because I'm asked this question a number of times every day. Like, there are people who want to relocate to this region and they want to get familiar with the GCC taxes, though they are very well versed with corporate taxes or VAT in their countries. Mm-hmm. But just to get an overall idea of the GCC tax landscape. Yeah. And also there are a lot of finance professionals in this region who just want to get that experience, just to have that technical knowledge before they can have that practical experience. So I think this would really be useful for them. So corporate tax is currently the most buzzing topic, particularly in the finance and tax circles. And with this trend, I see a lot of startups coming up in this region. So they are making a foray in tax consulting. And it's not just the startups, but even law firms or consulting firms which have never traditionally been in tax, but now they're setting up the tax practice with the help of experienced professionals. So do you think there is a lot of competition in this market?
I think the market can accommodate all of these players. I think I'd say they're very welcome. Yeah, it's good to have more people, to have contrasting ideas, to exchange ideas. A similar thing happened when VAT was introduced in 2018. You saw a couple of firms pop up. Some today are not there anymore. Some are still there and have grown stronger. It's true that more companies are looking at it. But as I said, there's work enough for everybody. So I wish them best of luck.
So if you were to describe your firm in 3 words, what would it be?
I had to think about this one a bit because you're limiting me to 3 words. And I'll hope you'll allow me to talk a bit around them. I think number 1 is research. We like to conduct research. We like to go deeper into things. I think people in the market have observed that as well. The second one is fun. I have a lot of pleasure in what we do. And I hope that's the case for the whole team as well. We do very nice assignments. We do assignments for very nice clients, very nice global brands, big brands. It's fun to go deeper into certain aspects for these groups. So I think we're serious people, but I do think we have fun. We have board games in the office, for example. That was an invention of one of the colleagues. And then the last one, I think, which is particularly important to me, is inclusion.
Okay.
So we're an equal opportunity employer. So we will not make any difference between people in terms of where they come from. And I think we try consciously to get a mix always of people, to be able to contrast ideas, really, to make people work together. That's in the end part of the beauty, which is Dubai. It's an international place where a lot of people come. So why not take a benefit from all these ideas and ask people, how did you do this in your home country? Perhaps that's a better way than how we are doing it today.
This brings a lot of fresh perspectives to the way of doing things. Lastly, just a few questions about yourself.
Sure.
So just the fun ones. So
Okay.
basically wanted to know what is the thing you like the most about Dubai?
Probably for me, it's Dubai and Riyadh, maybe a bit because I
Okay.
spend a lot of time there. But I think particularly for Dubai, it's a very dynamic and ambitious place, and you can really feel that drive towards development, the drive towards trying to be ahead of things. I think that's something that perhaps sometimes, I come from Europe, sometimes I think we've forgotten what that means to be ambitious about things. We're too hung up in the past, maybe sometimes. And I think Dubai has a good quality of life as well. I like to spend time in Riyadh as well. I think Riyadh in a certain way is, a couple of years ago I would have said it's 15 to 20 years behind Dubai. It's coming much closer right now. It's a very it's a very pleasant place to be. It's got nice restaurants. It's got nice places to go to. So I think those are very attractive places to go to. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm hearing really positive things about Riyadh from, people I'm speaking with these days.
Every month I spend a lot of time there.
Okay.
But I also travel to the other GCC countries.
Right.
And occasionally outside. There's always a lot going on. So I have luckily a very understanding wife who allows me to do all of these things. But yeah, I think in our profession, yes, you can do a lot of things online, but it's also important to go and see people and to go and
Yes.
feel people. And there's nothing
Yeah.
better than stepping inside a tax authority and the building and observing the people to understand how they really work and what to
Yeah.
expect from them. So,
It really makes a world of difference because being there, giving that face time to clients or
Yeah.
even the government authorities, understanding how things work there, I think you get more insights when you're physically
Yeah.
over there, I think. So what is your favorite way to spend the weekend?
I was referring to my very understanding wife because I have a special weekend, given that the work weeks are not the same in the UAE and Saudi.
Yeah.
So I also work on Sundays. But when I'm not working, I'm trying to really spend as much time as possible, good quality time with my wife and daughter. So that's really what the weekend is all about. And there's Saturdays I absolutely do not work at all. That's a black day or whatever you want to call it. So, that's one reserved
Yeah.
really exclusively. So
Right.
that's trying to find a way to balance things really. Yeah.
Yeah, as a business owner, it would be difficult to have that privilege of a weekend, I think, because it's just a 24/7 job. It goes on and on.
It is. You're never completely switched off. No. Yeah.
So which is your favorite holiday destination?
That's a tough one, Rutika. I like to travel a lot. It's a bit different though these days. Traveling with a young child, that limits a bit your possibilities.
Yes, I know that.
To go wherever you want to go. I went to Bali this summer. I enjoyed that quite a bit. But I enjoy a lot going to the Mediterranean countries, for example. But equally so, I enjoy a couple of days in a big city. So it's hard. I think probably above all, I like the change. I
Yeah.
like the variation.
So thank you so much for being here with us today, and it was a really insightful discussion. So we really hope that you enjoyed this discussion, and I hope the tips and advice were very useful for you. So stay tuned for our next tax episode. Thank you.